It's easy to think you need a high-end gaming PC, but with hardware prices soaring, top-tier hardware is out of reach for most gamers. And honestly, I'm not sure whether a supreme level gaming PC like this one is even worth it, because I've spent the past couple of days playing games on this, and yes, the performance is absolutely brilliant. But what does spending this amount of money actually buy you? That is what we're going to find out. But before we get into the video, MSI sent out some of the parts for this build. I don't get to keep them apart from the graphics card, which I bought with my own money. MSI doesn't get to preview the video before it's uploaded, nor did any money exchange hands. However, MSI is in the process of doing some sponsorships with me right now, and they have sponsored me in the past, so do with that what you will. Anyways, for a high-end gaming PC, I think we should start off with the motherboard. Now, this doesn't buy you extra performance, especially in the modern day. Every single AM5 motherboard will basically net you the same performance, unless if it's one of those really low tier garbage ones. If you spend around £130, I'd like to say, like a B650, you'd probably get similar gaming performance to this X870E Ace Max. Now, this is an insane motherboard. It's got more features than what most gamers would ever need, like 10 gig LAN, Wi-Fi 7 and 40 gigabits USB 4, which is absolutely obscene connectivity. Most gamers won't need more than gigabit LAN, for instance. And you've also got 5 M.2 slots for your NVMe storage. Most gamers may use 2 or 3 M.2 slots at most, so yeah, this is a pretty overkill motherboard, and it should be, because it costs £630 here in the UK. That is more than the processor we've paired it with, so yeah, it's a supremely high-end motherboard. But you might be thinking, who actually benefits from a motherboard of this caliber? Professionals, like video editors for instance. I know for a fact that a lot of video editors have NASes, so the 10GB LAN is a huge benefit on a board like this, and extra M.2 slots. I personally edit videos for the channel, and yeah, extra M.2 storage goes a long way. Now, we could have put my 9800X3D in here, but we don't need it because we're going to be playing at 4K. We don't need the extra CPU performance, and plus I can't be bothered to pull it out of my custom loop because that's just going to take literally forever. But the 7800X3D at 4K paired with virtually any graphics card on the market is going to be just as fast as the 9800X3D. There really isn't that much in it if you're gaming at a high resolution like this. But the funny thing about this processor, it costs less than half of the motherboard. That's just an absolutely insane pairing. No realistic gaming PC is going to be doing this. So if you want a good value AM5 motherboard, I'll have quite a few links in the description below. But when you pair the 7800X3D with 32GB of 6000 megatransfers CL30 DDR5 memory, yeah, you've got a pretty beefy gaming rig on your hands. Where I'd spend the most of your budget on a gaming rig is the graphics card. After all, this is going to influence our performance the most, especially at 4K, which is why I've gone with the RTX 5080 Ventus 3X, mainly because it was the only MSRP model available in the UK at just under £1,000. Yes, it's supremely expensive, and it's not like it's the highest end model, but that's okay, because under the heatsink you're still going to be getting the GB203-400 and 16GB of GDDR7 memory. That's going to be just as good as the Founders Edition, the Gaming Trio, or the Supreme. The only difference is the extra features like the dual V BIOS and the better cooler. But what matters is it can and will have great performance at both 1440p and 4K. Honestly, the 12V 2.6 is controversial to say the least, so any safeguarding we cannot take for granted, and MSI has built some features into their new power supplies which monitors current imbalance across all 6 of the 12V pins, and if an imbalance is detected it will throttle power, and failing that it will safely shut down the system with the aim of preventing the power connector on your fancy expensive GPU from melting. Also helping with this is it's bright yellow, so you know if the cable is fully plugged in. These things shouldn't need to exist, but given that Nvidia insists on using this power connector, it's great to see them. And also 1200 watts for a build like this, totally overkill. 850 is more than enough if you ask me. Just like the cooler, 360mm on a 7800X3D, totally overkill. This CPU is going to come nowhere near to saturating this. So with the PC built and Windows installed, I wanted to play some games at 4K. Now, we had to use some DLSS upscaling on quality, which personally I'm fine with that, it's not a problem. I kind of see it as free performance and I enable it where I can, CPU power willing. And honestly, with DLSS, the performance is pretty good. Because in the Assassin's Creed Black Flag remaster, with ray tracing, we're getting more than 60 FPS on average. Now, this isn't the smoothest frame rate in the world, but for a title like this, especially given the quality settings, yeah, I am not hugely disappointed in that. It is quite hard to run, but hey, it looks absolutely incredible. Personally, I play this game with frame gen enabled. I know a lot of people don't like that, but yeah, it smooths out the frame rate quite well, and it's not like I need the lowest input latency ever. Resident Evil 9 is another greatly optimized game, even with ray tracing enabled, so we also enabled DLSS again, and we're getting more than 70 FPS on average with a very smooth 1% low at 67. Now, this is fantastic performance, the game looks brilliant, and I've got zero problems here. In Battlefield 6, we lowered it to the medium preset to give both the GPU and the CPU a good test today, and we also kept DLSS enabled on quality, and the performance at 156 frames per second on average with a 1% low of 117. Yeah, great performance there. In fact, that's better than what the 5070 Ti system gets, so yeah, I might be building a system with the 5080 and the 7800X3D. Make sure you stay tuned for that because it's going to be a good one. In Arc Raiders, we didn't even need DLSS upscaling because performance without ray tracing on the Epic preset is perfectly fine. We're getting over 100 FPS on average with that 1% low, still looking pretty good at 76, so there's absolutely no problems there. DLSS here is more of a commodity rather than a necessity. You don't have to enable it, but if you still want more frames than this, yeah, go ahead, it's an option available to you. We kind of had to enable it in Dying Light the Beast on the high preset. For some reason, ultra high just completely ruins the frame rate, so I don't really recommend that, but still, it looks great on the high preset, and performance at 84 frames per second on average with a 1% low of 72 is pretty good, especially that we've got DLSS enabled once again. I believe it might just get around 60 at native, but do you want the higher frame rate for essentially just free performance with DLSS enabled? Yeah, that's something you can choose. As we all know, the 7800X3D is great in esports games, and paired with an RTX 5080, yeah, Counter-Strike 2 is not going to even give this PC a sweat. We get more than 360 FPS on average, so if you've got a 360Hz QD OLED monitor, this would be a good system for it. And we're getting around 164 for the 1% low. Typical frame times from Counter-Strike, they're not that smooth, but yeah, it's definitely playable. I could definitely climb the rank ladder on this, even though I'm absolutely terrible at this game, but I know the PC isn't going to be holding me back. So despite using DLSS upscaling, the games still look pretty incredible, and this is one thing I want to talk about. 4K is what many people consider to be unobtainable, but I think with upscaling, it's more obtainable than what people actually think. Yes, it's not native 4K, and it technically isn't, but that's okay, because if you enable DLSS or even FSR4 on quality, it's essentially rendering at around 1440p, but the upscaler's got a ton of information to work with, and it can rebuild the image pretty well with minimal artifacts, but it still retains the clarity and sharpness of 4K, and personally, when possible, I like to enable it. Now, it's not a perfect technology. In some games, it absolutely sucks, like in Crimson Desert. DLSS doesn't really work too well in that game, but outside of some edge case scenarios, it's pretty good. Should you have to enable it on a system of this caliber? Probably not in an ideal world, but given that it's fairly minimal in terms of its impact to quality, I personally recommend enabling it. So is it worth going all out on a gaming PC like this? For most people, no. For one, we can save a lot of money on the motherboard and even the CPU combo. Yes, the 7800X3D is actually pretty good value now. It's under £300 on scan at the day of recording this. And yeah, that's a really good deal for the 7800X3D. But you also need the DDR5 memory, which isn't cheap. It's like £350 for a 32 gig kit right now. That's insane. And the motherboard, you don't need an X870E like the Ace Max. It's a nice motherboard, but most gamers won't benefit from the features. You could get a B850 Tomahawk or something like that and call it a day. It's still a fantastic motherboard. But if you want to save even more money, you could go DDR4 with either the 5800X3D, which we tested recently with the 5080, and you get like 90% of the gaming experience we did today. You can watch that in a video up here, by the way. Or if you're feeling a bit adventurous, you could go with LGA 1700 with something like a 14700K. That's a fantastic processor. Just don't get a used one because there were some stability problems with Raptor Lake, especially with the degradation. So yeah, if you can find one brand new for a decent price with a DDR4 board, yeah, that's also another route I'd explore. But performance isn't everything. People shopping for a motherboard like this are probably more interested in the features it provides, like the 10GB LAN and Wi-Fi 7, which admittedly is quite common amongst the B850 and X870 motherboards these days. But it's not just that, it's the extra connectivity, like the speedy USB 4 40GB port, and even extra features like BIOS flashback and power buttons mounted on the motherboard, which is supremely helpful for troubleshooting. And of course, higher end motherboards tend to have more M.2 slots, so if you use a lot of drives, and if you do in this climate, you have a lot of money, so a motherboard like this is probably not that much of a cost to you. But yeah, higher end motherboards have the features while retaining the same performance. And from a non-functional standpoint, the X870E Ace Max is a fantastic looking motherboard. It's got gold and RGB all over it, so if you're really into that and you deem that extra value from this motherboard, yeah, you could always go with something like that as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you've got to ask yourself, do these extra features benefit you? If no, get a lower end motherboard like a B850. They're still going to be great for your Ryzen 7 X3D chips. But if you do, maybe that cost isn't so much of a bother to you, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, if you're just gaming and not creating or being productive on your system, having fun is what matters, not chasing that final drop of performance, because that can get very expensive very quickly. And to be honest, even though I've got an RTX 5070 Ti and 270K plus system, which I mainly use, I have a lot of fun on the Steam Deck. Yes, it's not a very powerful device. It's similar to like an RTX, not an RTX, a GTX 1050 Ti in terms of its performance, but the portability and the form factor, and I can play a lot of fun indie games on there, is why I value that. I was going to say console, that console PC, the Steam Deck so much. So if you can't get a high-end gaming PC, it's totally fine. Get the hardware which you are comfortable with buying, and that is what matters. Speaking of which though, if you want to see the RTX 5080 we tested today, but with the 5800X3D, which is re-released by AMD, yeah, it's like the year of re-releases this year, but yeah, you can watch that video up there. Very interesting, I think you'd want to see that. But with that being said though, yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.